Hello everybody, thanks for joining us today for the annual meeting of the East San Joaquin Water Quality Coalition. I'm Perry Clausen, Executive Director, and today I have joining me Katie Diemel with our membership management and Michael Johnson, our technical service provider with MLJ Environmental. So as you can see, you're watching another video annual meeting. We've been trying to schedule live meetings, and because of the COVID, it's not been possible to do that this year. We're hoping to possibly have a meeting, though, later this fall. So stand by. We may have a live meeting for you to participate in. So the agenda today is we're going to talk about the membership packet that you received last November, just a quick review of what the contents are of that packet. We've been mailing these for a number of years to save in mailing cost, and we're hoping that you are able to look through that and understand all the information that's in it. We'll be walking through some of the details. I'm going to give you an update on the member dues and where the level is this year and where we hope to keep it for the next few years, and then also talk about the nitrate control program. And then Michael will be talking about the surface and groundwater results that we've had over this past year and some of the issues that are coming up. And then Katie will end with a kind of an overview of some of the membership issues that we have right now. Stay with us for the whole video because there's a lot of information that's important to your membership, and there'll be a few questions scattered throughout that we'll need you to email us when you're finished along with your member number to make sure you get credit for watching the video.
Hi everybody, I'm Katie. We're going to just do a quick walkthrough of your membership packet and some of the information you've gotten in the mail. So we offer two ways to get your membership packet. You can either get it emailed to you or mailed to you depending on your preference. You set that in August every year on your update form. But in your membership packet has everything. You get one mailer that includes everything that you need to comply for the year. Kind of an overview, event calendar, your invoice, farm evaluation, nitrogen plan, worksheet, and any sediment and erosion information you need. And then kind of somewhat new is included is your nitrogen evaluation packet, which shows where you are relative to other growers. You can always get member assistance, so if you ever need help completing any of your paperwork, go ahead, reach out to us at Stanislaus County Farm Bureau, Merced, or Madera County Farm Bureau. We've provided all the contact information here. We'd be more than happy to help you. Not super new, but something that a lot of growers are utilizing more and more is our web portal. This gives you access 24/7 to all of your Water Coalition information. It has sort of, you can see in the display, multiple different things. You can see the document repository, which will show you all of your prior year's reports. You can complete your irrigation and nitrogen management plan summary report, farm evaluation, and even your irrigation and nitrogen management plan worksheet. So everything is available to you at any time to complete. Do your paperwork right on the portal. Everything is always due on March 1st, so we're filming this in May. Right now we're sending out late notices for nitrogen plans. So if you haven't completed your nitrogen plan and you're watching this, make sure you get that into us. In the portal, it kind of gives you just step-by-step information and a process to complete your nitrogen plan. So you can go through, add your parcel information, make sure you're adding your crop, you're planted, all of your data gets entered right into the portal. It saves you on postage. You don't have to send it in to us. It's done right there. You can go back and see your data live, which is really a great feature on the online portal. And last year, we released our new tool, the Irrigation and Nitrogen Management Plan Worksheet Portal tool. This has several different things, but it kind of gives you a whole bunch of calculators and options so you can submit your data as you go, kind of fill out your plan before March 1st, get it into the portal, and you can even update all of your nitrogen use, your water use throughout the year. It'll track all of that for you. And then at the end, it'll consolidate it into the summary report. So it kind of eliminates some need to do both, but you can submit everything through the worksheet tool and it will populate your summary report tool if you choose to use that function. But again, this is just all about our web portal. It's a really great tool. We're really happy to have it. We're encouraging members to get on and try it. If you haven't tried it, you can always give us a call, send us an email. We can send your login information. It's a great tool that we have available.
All right, now we want to talk about the membership fees. This is something that you were all getting used to, maybe or maybe not. It is something that has changed every year due to cost increases, unfortunately. And I want to explain a little bit about those cost changes. Fortunately for 2022, we were able to hold the dues at $5.50 an acre. So we have been able to hold down those costs. We're hoping to be able to continue that. One thing that you found in your packet this year that I want to just walk through a little bit, so point out the major points of this breakdown of your membership fees. So what we did is try to categorize the activities that we're doing that count for the fees that we're collecting. And as you can see on the top, it's the state board fees, $1.29 per acre. We started out 18 years ago with about 12 cents an acre, I believe is what we started with. Now we're at $1.29. We anticipate that's going to be going up again. And this is the cost to pay for the Regional Water Board staff. There's currently an effort to try to challenge those increases. Not sure if we're going to be successful, but the coalitions in the Central Valley are certainly pursuing that. Now, one thing that has changed in the last 2 years, as many of you members know, in the Modesto, Turlock, and Chowchilla basins, is that we have a supplemental invoice that comes out that covers the cost of the management zone expenses. And in the slide you see here, I'm going to walk through each of the basins. The Modesto Basin is $2.16 an acre on top of the base $5.50 an acre, and that represents 28% of the dues. So it is a considerable expense. This is a new program we'll talk about a little bit later. And then also showing you now the Turlock Basin, it's $2.13 an acre. And then finally, the Chowchilla Basin, $1.16 an acre. And these amounts are reflective of the amount of acreage that is in each one of these areas, the amount of work that's done, the number of wells that are sampled, domestic wells sampled throughout those regions, and then the amount of replacement water that is provided to residents whose wells are above the nitrate drinking water standard. So we expect this to be a consistent addition to your packet and your information, so you have a better idea of where these dues and these fees are being allocated throughout our budget each year. So one slide I want to just show the dramatic changes in the per acre fees from the state. This stops at 2011 at the $1.19 an acre, and we went up last year to $1.29, as I explained. But this shows you where the costs are going from the state standpoint. Another major budget item that we have that has impacted our annual dues is our groundwater protection project. The groundwater protection targets is a process that was put in place when the order was revised and changed by the State Water Board. All the water quality coalitions in the Central Valley are combining resources to pay for modeling and technical experts in this field to help develop these groundwater protection formulas, values, and targets. The first year, 2021, was our portion of East San Joaquin was about $100,000. This year, 2022, it was reduced to $50,000. Next year, it's going to likely be halfway between these two. These two amounts, maybe $75,000. And that's because we're working through the modeling. It's just about completed. Then the salt control program comes out of the CV Salts Basin Plan Amendment. This is a long-term plan development. It's called a prioritization and optimization study. This is a 10-year study that's going to prioritize where the salt areas are in the Central Valley and focus on developing potential solutions. Our annual dues are likely going to be in the $62,000 a year range over these 10 years, similar to all the other Central Valley coalitions paying into this, as well as other industries, cities and food processors, dairies, and others, all paying into the salt control program. Again, a joint effort with all of the dischargers in the Central Valley. And then finally, the extra pyrethroid insecticide sampling and analysis. We'll talk about that a little bit more. The cost is climbing because we just continue to see this insecticide showing up in our surface water sampling. And this is an issue that we've got to get our hands around. We need to understand what the pathways are, but also look for solutions, because pyrethroid insecticides are a very valuable pest control tool that we need to preserve. And there's a lot of pressure from the public on the continued registration of this class of insecticides. And the surface water issue is just part of the problem. So I want to talk a little bit about the nitrate control program. This was a basin plan amendment change. We've talked about it in previous annual meetings. There's a good report in your annual report, which, by the way, you should be receiving this summer, either by mail or online. And the nitrate control program impacts or affects all industries that have nitrates either as a fertilizer source or a discharge component. Irrigated lands, of course, us, dairy, poultry, food processors, wineries, and the cities. They're all paying to support the nitrate control program and the management zones that were developed as a result of that basin plan amendment. In this slide here, you can see the high priority management zones, the highest areas where nitrates are being found in groundwater through previous year's studies. We got our notice to comply of Priority 1 in May 2020. We expect to, in the Priority 2 basins, to get that notice in January of next year. Priority 2 include the Merced and Madera groundwater basins. And in the Northern Priority 1 basin, we have Valley Water Collaborative that was formed to manage the activities there in the basins, and then the Madera Farm Bureau is handling the Chowchilla Basin. We're still trying to determine where the Madera and Merced basins will land as far as the administrative responsibilities of that management zone. So the program, as I talked about, is Priority 1 areas are listed here for the entire Central Valley. So it's not just the East San Joaquin area, the Modesto, Turlock, and Chowchilla basins, but also the Kings, which is Fresno County, Cahuilla, Tule, down into Tulare counties. So we've been implementing the program since May 7th. Sampling and water deliveries began last year in May. And then in the Priority 2 basins, there are, as I mentioned before, we have Merced and Madera basins in the East San Joaquin, but there's a number of other basins throughout the Central Valley, starting with Yolo County on the north to Kern County on the south, that will have the same requirements and same responsibilities. If the notice to comply is mailed in early 2023, there's 6 months to create the preliminary management zone plan, which was developed already in our Priority 1 basins. And so in 2018, we've talked about this several times, but it's worth repeating because it's such a significant change. In the 2018 State Water Board order, they adopted a change in our reporting requirements, and also this requirement to submit a summary of your nitrogen applications and your yield for your previous year's crop. So many of you have done that already in the high priority areas, and we'll continue to do that. We're also identifying outlier fields. Those are fields that are applying more nitrogen than the crop uptake is showing through a calculation that I'll talk about here in a minute. So the nitrogen calculation is based on the crop nitrogen coefficient. This is the amount of nitrogen that is needed to produce a given unit of production. In the case of almonds, it's pounds. In tomatoes, it's tons. So there's scientific research has developed the amount of nitrogen that it takes to produce this volume of these products. So in this slide, you can see the calculation for almonds is 68 pounds of nitrogen for 1,000 pounds of nut meats. That is the amount that theoretically takes to grow that 1,000 pounds of nut meats. Now, efficiency, nitrogen and irrigation efficiency fits into that, but essentially the calculation is for 2,000 pounds, you should be putting roughly about 136 pounds of nitrogen on if you're just going to meet the need of that production. And these numbers were developed through funding from the Almond Board of California, UC Davis, and the other crops have had similar research to develop these numbers. So the crop coefficient is important because it is the number that we are going to be gauged on with all of our crops. So some of our crops need more study. You can see the list here. We've shown this in the past, but just a reminder, the good, reasonable, and poor, we have some that even are not available. And we're working, encouraging the commodity groups to develop these nitrogen coefficients because we're required to explain that and show that in a diagram that I'll show you here shortly. So the good thing about the good is that we have a high percentage of our total acreage that is covered with good crop coefficients. 21% is reasonable, and then the poor and not available are really a very insignificant amount of our acreage, important if you're a grower of one of these crops. So this excess nitrogen is determined by looking at the applied versus removed in a calculation. There's also an applied minus the removed, which gives you the potential excess nitrogen that's applied to the crop. This is not a perfect measure. There are things that are not taken into account that we're not pushing to have that included in our record keeping, but it is important. That's the timing of the nitrogen applications. When you put it on, the amount that's in each nitrogen application, the timing, the amounts of irrigation water, these all influence your crop nitrogen coefficient efficiency and how much you're taking up. So the A minus R is an important variable because it's going to show you where the excess could possibly be. And what we need to show is improvements over time to show that our groundwater loading, if you will, from the excess is showing improvements over time. It's going to take quite a few years, decades, to improve our groundwater sample results, but it is a metric. And really, it's the key to all of this is using management practices to try to reduce this potential leaching past the root zone. This A divided by R, A over R, is also used to determine outliers. And we look at 3 years of data of these AR values across a single commodity and do a calculation with an interquartile range to determine where you might land across compared to other crops, other growers of the same crops. So the outlier priorities is to convert this reported yield into nitrogen removed. And then we started with almond growers several years ago. We're now working on walnuts, pistachios, wine grapes, and other crops that have been identified as outliers. And here is a distribution curve that everyone will be getting that is in a high vulnerability area that shows how an outlier is determined. So this chart using in this example is for pistachios, and what this shows where the outliers appear on that curve. So when I was referring to the 68 pounds per 1,000 pounds of nut meats, that would be over where the 1 is at. So 1 is the amount applied that matches the crop yield. 2 is roughly 2 times as much as what your crop could use, 3 and 4, and then the outliers are clear out between 4 and 5. So we still have some work to do. As you can see, some of these fields are being treated with more nitrate than their crop is taking up. So if you are in an outlier, if you have an outlier field designation, there's a management practice implementation report that needs to be completed, and we are following up with those. Those are a mandatory requirement. We have to summarize those for regional water board reports anonymously, but they are tracking, and we are tracking who has turned those in. So you will hear from Katie and the membership management crew if you are late on that or haven't turned it in. We really need to have those turned in. And there is also outreach meetings for the outliers. We have several of them on video, and we'll resume having live meetings later this year for the crops that are prioritized, as you can see listed on the slide here. And if you have an outlier parcel, you will need that field certified by a CCA. If you're self-certified, you may have to take an additional class, attend a meeting held by a coalition. And as I mentioned, that management practice implementation report needs to be turned in. And then we're going to be tracking and reporting back to you over a 5-year period. So there will be a chance to adjust your applications and hopefully improve your yields to counter that outlier designation.
As Perry mentioned earlier, my name is Mike Johnson. The company that I work with, MLJ Environmental, is responsible for all of the monitoring and reporting that's required by the coalition to make sure that groundwater and surface water are meeting water quality objectives. So what you see here in the first slide is the list of pesticides that we found in the water in the East San Joaquin region last year. You can see that there's a list of pyrethroids. Perry mentioned earlier that pyrethroids are a problem, and I'm going to go into a little bit more detail here in just a minute. But you can see that we are required to monitor for 6 pyrethroids, and we actually found all 6 in the surface water last year. On the left side, you can see the chemical name, and on the right side, you see the product name. There may be other products that contain these active ingredients, these AIs. So if you're curious about whether the pyrethroid product you are applying is part of this list, it should be on the label. The active ingredient should be on the label. In addition to the pyrethroids, we found a couple of herbicides, Roundup and Goal. And we also found a couple of fungicides in the water. Those are, even though we found them in the water, we actually didn't find them in concentrations that are problematic. Our big issue over the last year or two has been the pyrethroids. The state has decided over the last couple of years that they are going to focus on pyrethroid pesticides. You can see here again the list of pesticides that we're required to monitor. And you can see both the active ingredient name and the product name. For us, the big issue is that the laboratories that we work with are capable of detecting pyrethroids in tiny, tiny amounts, minute concentrations in the water, and we are required to add those concentrations together to determine whether water quality is meeting objectives. Here you see a list along the bottom. This is a graph here of the concentrations of the pyrethroids in the water. Along the bottom, you see the months of the year, last year, and also the names of the sites, the monitoring sites that we have. And what you see is that the bars represent the added amounts of pyrethroids in the water. There is a red line across the graph there at the bottom. That red line represents the amount of pyrethroid that the state recognizes as causing a problem in the surface water in the region. And so what you can see is that there are a large number of monitoring events in which there are more pyrethroids in the water than are allowed by the state. As Perry mentioned earlier, this focus on pyrethroids and the increased amount of pyrethroid monitoring is very expensive. The cost of an analytical test for pyrethroids is much higher than almost any other chemical that we analyze for. And if we detect the pyrethroids in the water, we have to continue to monitor month after month after month. So this is a very expensive process, and the only way out of it is to eliminate the pyrethroids in the water. The next thing here you can see is the map of where those pyrethroids were detected across the coalition region. There's a lot of pyrethroids detected in the Stanislaus and Merced County areas. Because of the drought and the reduced amount of water in Madera County in particular, there were no detections, no exceedances of the pyrethroid standard in Madera County. We are now going to switch gears just a little bit and move on to groundwater. So we have a required groundwater trend monitoring program. We are required to monitor, and you can see here, 37 shallow wells, shallow meaning probably less than 240 feet in depth. That's the water that is considered the first drinkable water that people can reach. We have to use the trend monitoring program to characterize the concentration of nitrate in particular. This groundwater trend monitoring is focused on nitrate almost exclusively. We have to characterize the concentrations of nitrate in the groundwater across the coalition region using those 37 shallow wells. We monitor annually. Our monitoring period, I think, is about the end of July, early August. We go out once a year. We collect the water, we get it analyzed, and we report the results to the state the following spring. The coalition, in an attempt to reduce the expense of the trend monitoring program, because not only do we have to monitor, but we also have to report on the groundwater data to the state, the coalition has joined what's called the Central Valley Groundwater Monitoring Collaborative. The Central Valley Groundwater Monitoring Collaborative consists of 10 of the Irrigated Lands coalitions. There are three coalitions that are not participating. 2 geographic coalitions and the Rice Coalition are not participating. Each coalition monitors their own water, their own wells, and they report the data back to the CVGMC, the Central Valley Groundwater Monitoring Collaborative, yearly. There are several collaborative elements, including the characterization over a wide area of the concentration of nitrate in groundwater, in the shallow groundwater. And we have just turned in our first 5-year assessment of the concentration of nitrate in groundwater. We turned that in last November. And this was done in an attempt to save money, and it has, in fact, saved a substantial amount of money for the coalition by all of the coalitions banding together and doing the characterization jointly. What you see here now are where the wells are located, and you see the concentrations of nitrate in the groundwater in those various wells across the coalition region. What you see is the coalition region with a peak, sort of a pink area there toward the western edge of the coalition. That is called our high vulnerability area. That's the location in the coalition region where groundwater quality is known to be bad. That's where the concentration of nitrate exceeds 10 milligrams per liter, which is the drinking water standard. What you can see, the size and color of the dots on the map give you an indication of both the concentration of the nitrate in the groundwater and that location. So you can see that, in fact, the concentration of nitrate exceeds the drinking water standard up and down the coalition region, from Madera County all the way up to Stanislaus County, and from the eastern side of the coalition region all the way out to the river. So there is a lot of nitrate in the groundwater, and there are other efforts underway to understand how long it will take for the groundwater to become safe to drink, considered safe to drink by the state, and that is part of the groundwater protection process. I want to add a brief note about monitoring during periods of drought. Over the last year or so, there has not been a great deal of water in a lot of the coalition waterways. We only monitor where we have running water. We have actually had a significant reduction in the amount of monitoring that we've had to do because there simply hasn't been enough water to collect. Despite that, we can't ignore the fact that over the course of the last few years, we've had a significant increase in the number of pyrethroid exceedances, and we are starting to pick up a few extra pesticides in our water quality sampling. When we have management plans, in other words, when we have to have continual monitoring and outreach to address problems like continued pyrethroid exceedances, we cannot avoid those even if there is very little water this year. History is important, and the history has shown that we have significant pyrethroid problems, and it's going to take some effort on the part of the growers to solve those problems. I am confident that that can be done. I think back to the mid-2000s, when we had a large number of chlorpyrifos problems. Over the course of time, those chlorpyrifos problems were gone. They were eliminated by all of the members who spent a lot of time and effort reducing their discharge to surface water. I know we can do that for the surface water with pyrethroids. It's just a matter of paying attention to your applications.
Okay, and to kind of round out the rest of our presentation here, we're going to talk about a few important membership details. The coalition's now 19 years old. We've got roughly 3,300 landowners and cover over 700,000 acres here in 5 counties, including Stanislaus, Merced, Madera, Mariposa, and Tuolumne. There's been kind of a lot of changes, especially recently. So with the new update to our order, farm evaluations are due every 5 years. So the next one will be due in March of 2025. The MPIRs, the surface water, those are the individual surveys. Wayne Zipser and myself come out, meet with growers that are along waterways, talk about some of those exceedances and really hone in on the practices that could help alleviate some of those exceedances in those areas. Groundwater MPIRs, these are the surveys that Perry talked about earlier. If you're an outlier, you received one of these groundwater MPIRs. It is in your packet. It is something we need you to complete and send back into us as soon as possible. So check your packet. You'll see it under that nitrogen evaluation packet section in your packet. And we can make sure we get those in. We will be reaching out to anybody that's missing those. And again, not super new, but something that's changed is that the Irrigation and Nitrogen Management Plan Summary Report now applies to everybody. So everybody is submitting that report. The Irrigation and Nitrogen Management Plan requires a sign-off, so either a CCA has to sign off on that plan for you, or growers can become self-certified to complete the plan themselves and provide that signature. The class to get your self-certification is a half-day class, about 4 hours, taught by a CCA. All of that content, all of the upcoming classes, whether they're in person, virtual, they're listed on the screen here. It is the CDFA training link there at the first part of that slide. If you're already self-certified, you have to complete 3 hours over 3 years of continuing education, or an hour a year of continuing education. Those are listed on the CDFA site as well. They're always available. There's some self-study courses that you can do at your own pace. There's some live webinars. There's some recorded webinars. So check out CDFA's site, and that'll have all of those continuing education courses. And for those of you who are looking to get your self-certification, it'll also have a list of all upcoming courses. Well, we're talking about self-certifications. Sediment and erosion control plan can also be signed off by a grower who's completed a self-certification training. This is a one and done course. Once you take it, you are, certified indefinitely to go ahead and sign off on those plans. The sediment erosion plans are also sort of good indefinitely, or until something changes on the farm. Then you can go ahead and redo the plan or make notes and adjustments as to, combat those changes. We don't have a class scheduled right now, but you can sign up if you're interested in taking the class. Let us know. There's a section on our website. If you go to ESJCoalition.org, click on Sediment and Erosion Control Plan, and you can sign up to get information when we do host the next class. A little bit more, Irrigation and Nitrogen Management Plan summary reports are really important. So we just want to make sure that if you haven't submitted that, please get it into us as soon as possible. They are due on March 1st. We'll be doing follow-up. You're getting late notices in the mail now. We're talking about May right now. Again, just as accurate as you can be, as much information as you can get us, that's really important. The forms haven't changed, so we're looking at the Irrigation and Nitrogen Management Plan worksheet here. Some of the things that are sort of new, they've been on the form for multiple years, but it's crop evapotranspiration, crop irrigation, nitrogen content and water. Make sure those pieces of information make it onto your plan. This one's filled out ahead of time. You're looking forward, what you think is going to happen in the upcoming year. So go ahead and fill out what you think your nitrogen use is going to be, what you think your yield is going to be. We know that a lot can change from the start of the year to the end of the year. So feel free to make any notes, anything that's happening throughout the year. There's a section for that. And you're just going to keep the worksheet on farm. So that's a document that never comes back into us. It's solely for your use. Then at the end of the year, you're looking back at what happened. So on your nitrogen report that was due for 2022, you're actually looking at what happened in 2021. You're looking at your nitrogen numbers, your irrigation, different types of irrigation, a lot of your nitrogen practices, who signed off on your plan. This one's really important. The form hasn't changed, which is really nice. So it's the same as it's been, I think, the last 2 years. So go ahead and make sure that gets completed. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at any of your Farm Bureau offices, Stanislaus, Merced, Madera. Give us a call. We'd be more than happy to go through all of this information with you. Another thing that's required to have on hand is a copy of the general order, the waste discharge requirements. We've had this slide in here for years. We can definitely print one for you. Give us a call at the Farm Bureau offices. We'll have it printed for you. You can come in and pick it up. It's like 300 pages, so give us a little bit of a heads up so we can have that ready for you. You can also go to the ESJCoalition.org site, click on General Order, and just download it right to your computer. You don't have to have it a printed copy. If you have one saved on your computer, that works just as well. We recently have a couple new board member additions to our board, so we'd like to welcome Patrick Machado, John Mendonca, and Dominic Rossini to our board. If you know any of them, congratulate them. Welcome to our board. They're great people who have a lot of expertise and a lot of knowledge and growers in our area that are going to help lead the direction that the San Joaquin takes. Our board is made up of 11 people. Right now, our current chair is Alan Reynolds. Our secretary is Brianne Vandenberg from Merced County Farm Bureau. Treasurer, David Brush. And board members are Tom Rodner, Christina Beckstead, Pat Machado, Mark Hudson, Joey Biscay, Dominic Rossini, and John Mendonca. They do a great job. They volunteer. It's all purely volunteer board. They spend time to really know everything that's happening, the information, attend meetings, attend extra meetings, have committee meetings. So they work really hard on behalf of you, their fellow growers, to make sure that we're complying and meeting the needs of our growers. And with that, if there's any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. The easiest way, call 209-846-6112, extension 2 will get you right to me. You can email us at contactesj@esjcoalition.org. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. And thank you very much.
Well, thanks for watching today. I have a couple more things I want to cover quickly and a special announcement at the end. So we understand we're farmers. We are seeing the climate changing and all the activities related to land being taken out of production because our deficient supplies of water, both groundwater and surface water. The board of directors, again, are growers. They realize this and see this. We've had several discussions on how to handle this in coming years. We have some estimates of 10 to 20 to 30% of our acreage in our coalition region being fallowed. So we need to figure out how we can adjust our regulatory responsibilities. We're now working on some proposals we're going to take to the regional board to see how we might be able to have some softening of our regulatory requirements. The requirements we have now, we worked on to minimize for years now, so we have to really put our thinking caps on to see how we can still remain in compliance with the California regulations for surface and groundwater, yet recognize the reality of less property in production. So stay tuned. We'll have some bulletins available and sent out to you, and if we're able to pull off a annual meeting, live meetings later this year into the fall, we'll give you an update at that time if we have information. Now, one more thing I want you to stay with us for a minute. As some of you may know, our member of our staff and also at the Farm Bureau, Wayne Zipser, has retired from Stanislaus County Farm Bureau. And he's going to remain working for us, but I'd like Wayne to come on here for a minute and just talk about what his life's going to be like for the next couple of years. So, Wayne?
Hi, everyone. My name is Wayne Zipser, and I'm the Executive Manager of the Stanislaus County Farm Bureau. As Perry just mentioned, he talked about me retiring, and I am going to retire. I'm retiring officially on July 1st. And Stanislaus County Farm Bureau, and along with myself, is very excited and happy to tell you that my replacement will be Katie Diemel. And you know Katie. Katie was just on the video and part of this coalition for several years. And we're very excited about her coming on board and being the new leadership here at the Farm Bureau. But that being said, I am still going to be involved with the coalition. As you may know, myself and Perry Clausen, Bill McKinney, who has just retired off the board a year ago, and along with Alan Reynolds, started the coalition almost 20 years ago. And we've had many years of an adjustment for you as a grower, because it was 20 years ago, and it seems like yesterday, but it was a new regulatory burden that was placed upon you as the grower. And we realized that, and we started the coalition about 20 years ago. And I've been very, very proud to represent all of you growers through the coalition process and also with Farm Bureau. because on one side we fight regulation, and on the other we're trying to help you as growers comply with what you have to comply with every day. We also recognize for many, many years that the regulatory issues that you're faced with, it doesn't just stop with water. And we know that all the other regulatory things that are going on that makes it harder for you to do business in California, we understand that. And we've always tried to make the coalition a very easy way for you to be able to comply, and we're still going to do that. I'm still going to work with the coalition on a part-time basis. I'm going to be able to help you answer questions. I'll be able to come out to your farms and visit with you if you need to come out and help you fill out paperwork or whatever you need. Again, we have a great team at the coalition. We have a great team here at Stanislaus County Farm Bureau, Merced County Farm Bureau, and Bandera County Farm Bureau help as well. And we're going to continue that service, and you will not notice any changes in that. And so please give us a call at the coalition, and or give me a call, and I'm happy to give out my cell number. It's 209-985-9123. And if you need any assistance at all, you get any notifications from the Regional Water Board, please give us a call, let us know, and we'll help you deal with what other issues there is. Again, I want to thank all of you for all your years of help, because we has been a very successful coalition only because of you growers who have done a wonderful job of paying attention and helping us through this regulatory process. And again, I'll be here to help you in every way I can, help Katie, and we're excited about the future. Thank you.